This is one of the most wonderful venues that we use for Friday Cafe, and I want to encourage you, when we're done today, I'm from the State Department of Education. I'm telling you, do not go directly back to work, okay? Go and explore this wonderful museum, and there's an exhibit of Walter Wick's work, like the Where Waldo? Go find that exhibit and give yourself a Friday treat and just spend a few minutes here. So thank you for coming. We're so excited to see you in person. I'm Judy Carson, if I haven't met you. State Department of Education, as I said, and my work is school, family, community partnerships, and Friday Cafe is my favorite thing that I do, and I forget how much I love it until it's Friday Cafe Day, and then I'm like, yay, this is the best day ever. As my friend Betsy Laboria said, like, this is the oxygen mask that helps us do this work. I stole your line, Betsy, I'm sorry.
All right.
So we are in our 9th year. We're almost wrapping up our 9th year Friday Cafe, and so we're going to have to plan something super special for our 10th year. Today we're talking about leadership, leading alongside families, sharing power with families, and we have some wonderful, wonderful examples of that I'm excited to introduce to you today. So lead alongside families. It's really about taking part in the broader field of family engagement, but also, as I said, importantly, bringing others along, being the catalyst for change in your school or district in whatever role you play. And systems change. So this is big work, but we don't have to bite off the whole thing. We take what we can do now, and that's what you're going to be hearing about at our tables. So I'm taking this out of the core competency document. It's pretty dense, but we have the links for you. But part of taking part in lifelong learning, not only your own learning and bringing others along with you, but it's also about using data and looking at how we're doing and whose data are we collecting? How are we representing all the families in our data? How are we using that data? Make sure we do use the data. And you're going to hear one of our tables is talking about that today. Advocating for systems change. Looking at the policies. Equity is really about removing barriers and asking questions of the people who are experiencing the barriers. What isn't working? Let us know, because they know. And so then championing equity as part of this work, which I know is a theme through everything. And then the conversation in the communities as well as your schools and districts. So that's what we're working on today. So with that setup, I want to turn it over to my friend, colleague, and I don't know, partner. I say partner in crime, but that's not sounding so good, is it, Betsy?
No.
Just partner in all things, to introduce the Connecticut School Family Partnership and to introduce our fabulous presenters for today.
Yeah.
Thanks, Betsy.
Thank you, Judy. Okay, Judy's a little taller than I am, but I'll make it work here. Okay. So thank you, Judy. We are in a space of creativity, right, and innovation. This is a museum, so we consciously look at places that really promote that kind of learning and just promote the idea of we can take a deep breath right now, right? And if you get the chance really to see Walter Wick, or also Ansel Adams is also here as a traveling exhibit, really take the opportunity to do that. My name is Betsy Laborious, I forgot about that. And I am the project director for the Connecticut Family School Partnership and Network for Education here in Connecticut. Today, I'm very, very pleased to talk about our conversation catalysts are from Stamford. So Dena Booker will be talking about data, I believe, collaboration and reflection, how Stamford uses data, right, to create more family engagement opportunities. Julie Church is from East Haven, and she is really going to talk about co-constructing learning opportunities with families and sharing practical experiences, and look at that low cost, no cost implementation operations. That's kind of that's a wonderful buy-in, right, for that work. So I just want to thank all of our conversation catalysts.
Leading alongside families is at the core of the work that I do. I work out of central office, and I work with all of our schools and district, and we with very limited funds, the project cost $300 for the year. We were able to do a paint alongside your child, and I thought I was too loud, but so this paint night alongside your child, right? Beautiful. You go to paint nights, that's a fantastic thing. But if you look at it through a lens of, hey, we're gonna paint the background, and we have to wait for that to dry. And while that's drying, we wanna talk to you about SEL and your teenager, and what you could do at home. It's just embedded in the work, and it's not, we're asking you to come out and be spoken to about social emotional learning and how we can support your child. We did the next level, and within this tiny little painting project that cost $300 to be able to do it over and over and over again throughout the year, we're able to have 3 sessions of conversation in that evening about how you can work with your child on those critical things, especially at that time. And it is something to see when you have a middle schooler sitting next to a parent or guardian, enjoying themselves out in a public space without technology. Those are the types of meaningful experiences that, you know, we tried to lay out and demonstrate for you and bring to the table. The QR code that's on the table, if you scan that, it is all of our contact information, everyone who's going to speak. I'm going to hopefully cut them off at about 5 minutes each. But at any time, feel free to reach out to us. I'm voluntold and giving them the voluntold of they're going to take your calls and share some additional information. Now, these are the catalysts of this work, so I'm sure they'd be glad to share. I'm going to start with Marissa Velasquez, who is our FRC coordinator. She's got a lot of things under her name. And she's going to share a little bit about the work and leading alongside families, starting at the bottom, starting with the young ones.
Yes, well, thank you, Julie. My name is Marissa Velasquez. I am currently the Connecticut Family Alliance President, and I also oversee the FRC in East Haven, and I am the preschool program coordinator in East Haven as well. So as Julie said, we wear many hats. But the biggest thing that we are focused on in East Haven is connecting with our families. And we're dealing with the most at-risk families in our district. And with that comes a lot of needs. Even before COVID, there was a lot of needs. So making those creative connections has been our goal. And the way we do that in the FRC is we provide, as Julie mentioned, low cost or no cost opportunities for the families to really come or we go to them and provide them with opportunities of support or creative opportunities. So we host playgroups, learning playgroups 4 times a week. We have 2 parent educators that are operating within the FRC, one bilingual, which has been a really amazing resource. We also became a diaper bank, so many families, because diapers, you know, they're expensive, they're costly, but providing these opportunities helps us engage them, and then when we develop that relationship, as was spoken before, we're then able to really understand what their needs are and how we can connect them within the other resources in the district. So if you look on our table here, we have diaper bank. We also do food distribution. We connected with the CT Food Share. We have food distribution twice a month now in East Haven. And through that food distribution, we're meeting people. We're talking to them. We remember their names. We're trying to be as intentional as possible to help make a difference. So there's a lot of different areas that we are trying to hit. But one of the biggest things that we find that has been really helpful is our home visitation program. Now, with home visitation, many people think, oh, I don't want you coming into my house. We don't need to come into your house. We're going to come meet you. You want to go to the softball field? You want to go to the library? Oh, if you want to come to my office, let's meet, let's talk, let's find out how we could support you. Sometimes we may not even have the resources, but they just need that ear, right? They need someone to know that they're not alone. So, with that, we're doing our best, trying to, make those connections. And right now we are offering a People Empowering People session. We have 14 participants right now. We have an AM session, a bilingual session, and an evening session. So in June, we're going to probably have 14 graduates of that program, and which we're really excited about. So with the collaboration with the district, we're always working together to really help make that happen. So that's us in a nutshell.
So, I love the way Marissa shared that sometimes, parents or guardians aren't in agreement with having you come into their home, but we do need to meet them, and we really need to meet them where we are. And part of leading alongside families is listening to what families have to say and making modifications along the way to address their needs. And I want to give another example of that. We use Panorama Education survey instrument to collect feedback from families. That's one of our measures. We also have a community cafe in the morning in different schools across the district where families are able to come in. And then we have a conversation cafe in the evening, which is virtual and in person. We're finding that fewer and fewer individuals want to come out in person, that, they like the virtual option, but even if we offer food, families really aren't likely to come out, even if it's just at drop-off in the morning. But being receptive to what they have asked for or what they point out to us has helped to bridge that. Jen's going to speak next in a moment. Jen's from an elementary school which houses preschool, a preschool special education program up to grade 2, both regular and special education. And we had a breakfast conversation cafe in the morning. Very few people showed up. But the principal in that building shared, you know what? I can tell you that our families gather at the playground after school. The kids want to play together. You want to have conversations with them? Here's where we need to make them happen. Switching the location, calling it something different, and you're meeting their needs. If people, individuals respond in our surveys, our goal is to show them where the change occurred and point it out to them. Because a lot of feedback we had with our surveys is that whatever happens with what we tell you, why should we fill this out? Nothing becomes of it. So at our Board of Education meetings now, we do a synopsis of our district results, building level results, and we point out the changes that have occurred that may make it all the way up to the policy in our district that's brought before the Board of Education, or it may be a simple change in a building location of where a meeting's held. But it's critical that you share that with families. So thank you for responding to the surveys. As a result of your information, these changes have occurred. Before the next survey goes out, and we've found that we're getting more accurate information from families, and the buildings, I can say, where that's happening most, we are seeing larger increased participation for sure, which is really cool. So I'm going to turn it over to Jen.
Hi, I'm Jen Giovanni. I'm an interventionist in East Haven with a pre-K through second grade. I work with kindergartners, first and second graders, but I also run a before school program, and I'm the summer school coordinator, so I interact a lot with the parents. But kind of piggybacking a little bit on what Julia just mentioned, we had a meeting earlier this week, and there were a few parents that came to put their input about how they were parents of younger students, and their students aren't involved in sports yet, so those of you who have kids, like sporting events and things like that is where you kind of meet your own friends besides your children making friends, and they hadn't really made those connections yet. So besides the playground in the afternoon, which there are tons of parents that stay, the parents were saying, well, you know, we kind of hang out and talk in the morning as well. So one of the parents and a few others that were there were thinking, well, maybe if we put like a tent up in the morning and maybe have like some bagels or something, it'll get some of the other parents to come enjoy. We haven't tried it yet, so I'm hoping by the end of the year we'll be able to get that going, because that sounds like something that the parents really want, and I think it will. You know, because you see the parents I help with drop off at times, and you see the ones that kind of congregate and the other ones that are kind of like looking. So it'll be nice to get everybody together. But as my role as before school coordinator and summer school, I'm always dealing with parents. And our before school program this year, it was great. It's ending, but one of the things I would do in the morning is I would, you know, when we open the door, me and my staff, we would really, you know, go out there and greet the kids, like just like really happy greeting, you know, and the parents loved it, the kids loved it. They're actually sad that the program is going to be ending, because the kids have, I don't know, it was just a really great way to start the day. Of course, there were academics, but then there were a lot of fun activities that we did. We would build like geometric shapes with glow sticks, and the kids they were able to take them home, and they just had a ball. And I got a lot of positive feedback, and it was nice to hear, you know, from the parents, like, oh wow, you know, my child doesn't mind coming in an hour earlier for school because they're having like such a great time, and they get to, you know, just learn, but they're having a lot of fun. And in summer school as well, you know, a lot of interaction with the parents, asking them what they would like to see with the program, how their kids are feeling. It's been really great, because it's different than when you're in the classroom. Of course, you're interacting with parents because they're your students, but seeing more and more parents and then getting their ideas and putting it into place, it's been really great to say. This has been a good year. I enjoy
really,
it.
and really just trying to listen as much as you can. Open that door, and like, we come to the table with ideas. We always come to the table. I came to this table and I said, I have all these ideas. I'm sure there's great ideas that are running through your heads right now, and hopefully after Mary Ann shares, we might have 5 minutes of anyone who wants to throw out their best practices that you feel we would all benefit from. Myself, I know that when my first trip to Friday CAFÉ, it was when I met Dr. V, I'm going to be honest, and when she was working in a district, and she had a big binder of all the work she was doing, and I was flipping through that, taking pictures, and I was, you know, so it's the opportunity for us to take with us something, one thing, whatever that is, that really will help, you know, drive our work. Families have so much to offer us, and when we're working together, only good things happen. Sorry.
That's okay.
Mary Ann.
Hi, I'm Mary Ann Brennan. I'm a math coach and interventionist at a 3-5 school. I'm also a team leader for PBIS and restorative practices. In direct response to parents' surveys, the panorama surveys, we've implemented some changes in our academic and social interaction practices. So we have our EIT meetings that in general where parents were contacted but didn't take full participation in, and now parents often will Zoom in. That is their preferred method of contact. Some do physically make the meetings in the morning, but parents are very happy to be involved in the initial planning and intervention stages of their students who need support. They want to know what's going on. They want to know, they might not be comfortable with the interventions in place, but they want exposure to what interventions are happening, and they have a lot to offer as far as successes that they see for their child's learning styles. So in direct response to that panoramic survey, we are now calling parents to the table more physically or virtually, however they can, to come and meet with us about the planning and interventions for their children. Another direct response to the survey are more social connections that aren't just parents come to school, but our ELLs have asked for an opportunity to meet and come together as families. So we have picnics involved. That was what they had suggested, and we're listening to parent and guardian suggestions. So to have a picnic as a very low-key interactive opportunity with the playground involved, so it's not a situation where we're calling for parents to come and they have to find child care for their children, families, older brothers and sisters, whomever, are welcome, and they're enjoying those interactive social experiences to make connections with other families and to feel a bonded community experience. Another example of that is with our activities in and out of school. So simple things as field day. Well, you have your field day participants and parents come and run games, but we also have a group of parents who run a barbecue for us, and they cook for all the kids and staff, and they have the best time. They can't wait for field day because they all kind of get together and they enjoy cooking together, and it's simple things that you would never think to ask parents to do, but some parents have offered, and it's just really taken off. Another opportunity, testing time, ESPA, and the initial welcome to school, we have parents and their students come and sidewalk chalk, draw pictures, welcoming phrases, encouraging work, and it's just a time to interact with parents and families and the students, and it's very low-key and low stress. So those are some ways that we've looked at the responses from the parent surveys and taken into consideration their requests and their needs.
So I'm going to quickly pop in with three things that I feel are critical to point out. One is we just recently hosted a welcoming walkthrough, and I know everyone's familiar with that, from the state. Ours should actually air on Channel 8 News next Tuesday, which is exciting. The thing that I wanted to share about that is that it was brought up in that welcoming walkthrough that while we're sitting there talking about we want families back in and we want to engage them, what is our like body language, for lack of a better term, message saying? Because we're really saying we don't want you in our building with our practices. So just be really cognizant of the transition back after COVID, and to address all those school safety things might be conveying a message that we're not a welcoming space, and how can we make small modifications to our current practice, still keeping our children safe, but really making a point that we are welcoming you, that we do know that you offer our students quite a lot. A suggestion for any district that has a culinary department in either in their high school. Our culinary students at the high school have been providing treats for families, and that turns into your no-cost option to have. Ours makes amazing croissants that everyone loves. So, and it's paid through the school because they're practicing and it's part of their program. They will also host events for us during the day. Unfortunately, those have to be. They will set tables. They run their own little cafe. So definitely something to look into. And the last thing is we've now put this out for staff and for families. Really try to find out what people's passions are. Bring that to the table. We're working on it with staff. So we're trying right now to find what staff members have passions that they can share with their students so that we can incorporate that into the day, that SEL kind of break. But we have family members that have the same that can provide us that same opportunity. If you have a passion and you're willing to share it with us, that's a new question in our survey. If you have a passion and you're willing to share it with us, please list it and contact, and it has information. We do that because our surveys are anonymous, but I feel like there are so many untapped resources in all of our communities that we can really be bringing into our schools.
We're just going to do a quick introduction and then we'll dive in because we don't have much time, and maybe I'll talk a little slower this time than the last group. So my name is Dena Booker. I work in Stamford Public Schools in the Office of Family and Community Engagement.
I'm Katie Murphy. I'm the data manager for Stamford Cradle to Career. We're a collective impact organization that works with the city of Stamford and the public schools.
And my name is Jennifer Foreman. I work for the Stamford Public Education Foundation, which is a nonprofit that helps to support Stamford Public Schools, families, and students. And I work in parent programming.
So in Stamford, I say our village, but our village is very important. We don't typically do a lot of anything, just Stamford Public Schools in isolation. We have a pretty strong connection with our community partners. So it really makes sense for when we're looking at climate to bring in some of our partners who also see families and also work with students, so that we're really making sure that we're hitting all aspects when we're thinking about climate. So that's why there's SPS, and then we have Cradle to Career and SPEF, which really, I mean, we typically work together anyway. Literally, like we're all on the same calls, we're all doing the same thing anyway, so it just made sense for the three of us to really come together to really focus on climate. So we'll dive in. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Oh, right. So in 2021, 2022, we were asked to look at the survey, the school climate survey that we had been using, and try to make it better. So our first meeting, we sat down with the questions, and we thought we would go through the questions, like, let's keep this, that did not work. The questions were very chaotic and just really, there was no system to them at all. So we thought, we decided that we were going to look at outside vendors who have questions already prepared and already validated, so that we could do a survey that would be more consistent, that we could compare year to year, as well as to a national database. So in order to make a decision about which vendor we were going to use, we convened committees, or just short focus groups with students, with families, with administrators, and with staff, so that we could get feedback on the two survey vendors that we were looking at, to look at questions, like which questions really make sense to you, which ones are easy to understand. So we were able to gather that feedback from all those different groups, so to make a decision for which survey we wanted to go with. One of the goals that we had while we were working on this was we hadn't gotten very great responses from families before, and we really wanted to improve our response rates from families, as well as improve the representation of different groups. In Stamford, we're very, very diverse, so it tends to be one segment of the population that fills out the survey, but we really wanted to get all voices. So we spent a lot of time thinking about, how we're going to do this so that we can increase family responses, and a lot of it was doing outreach. So we used, this is from this year, and if you don't speak Haitian Creole or Ukrainian, I'm sorry. These were the ones we had left. But so we had these flyers. We also did business cards and would kind of go out while the survey was open to hand out cards at pick up and drop off, or we went to a Boys and Girls Club to do that as well, so that we could really get out there and tell people what the survey was about and why it was so important, and why we wanted to hear from them.
So what did we hear? In year one, we collected 3,981 surveys in our first outing with this new Panorama tool, which was significantly more. It was about 35% over the previous 2018-19. They kind of did a quick one in 2020. And so we were really excited that we had increased at least the volume of responses. It's an fully anonymous survey, so we kind of guesstimate the percentage of families that we reach to be between 25 and 36% based on our student population. Because we asked them to fill out one per child, and we know that most people just kind of fill out one for all their kids. And so we also were able to look at that data and identify at a district level what their areas of focus were going to be for the year, because in the past they just kind of sent it out to principals and said, okay, great, here's your data, like make a plan for next year. And we wanted to be more intentional, and we realized the way that Panorama is set up as a survey, there's different question sections, I guess. I don't know if anybody else uses their survey, but we identified sense of belonging, so like how members of the school community feel valued and welcomed within those areas, and then school climate is another section of the larger survey. So like the perception of the overall learning environment to be our areas of focus for the next year, which help the principals, look at all your data, but like these are going to be the areas that we're all going to agree to work on, and you can make that work however you need to for your school, both for the students and the staff and the families. There's a lot of carryover questions for those areas, so we thought it was really helpful, and then it also will impact all the other areas, right? So through that work, we did a lot of data support for the principals and the school climate specialists. We had 3 2-hour workshops throughout the year on like how to look at your data, how to ask questions, how to make action plans with it, how to set goals. They're already doing a lot of work that impacts those areas, but it was shifting the thinking to be like, explicitly linking, this program that we're running to, Choose Love or something at one of the elementary schools. Well, like what parts of that can impact how students feel like they belong at your school, or how staff feels like they belong, or how parents feel like they belong. And so that was really helpful. We had office hours, we went to the schools, and then we also, the family part is like our next phase, right? So we're trying to get the schools on board, and then this year we're going to focus on families. So we just closed our second year using the Panorama survey, and we increased our family responses to 5,274, so a 32% increase over the previous year. And this is the first year where our respondents, the majority self-identified as Hispanic and Latino. So 41% of our respondents self-identified, which when we have 50% of our students who are identifying as Hispanic and Latino, we're moving in the right direction that we weren't moving in before. And we were able to see that. That was harder for us to see too. Like we can get instant reports from Panorama to be like, okay, we need to do more outreach, and we need to go into these areas, and we need to talk to these families, which has been very helpful. And so, this was a lot due to lessons that we learned in year one, and we keep an open Word document, an open Google Word document that we just kind of dump all of our thoughts into as we're doing the process. So families will someone called Dena this year and was like, this didn't work, I didn't have a question about this, and she's like trying to talk to them and figure it out, but like also putting in feedback about what we can think about for next year. Or a lot of the families were like, oh, it'd be great to have it over parent-teacher conferences because we're already in the building. So we're like, great, we can shift that for next year and make the time window be during parent-teacher conferences. Or a lot of our Hispanic families have said, the language and the translation is confusing, and just the words that they've selected in those translations. And so while we can't change the translations at this point, we do offer that feedback to Panorama. We have calls with them, and we've collected all that. We're going to send them all the parent feedbacks, this word instead of that word, or this is a confusing way of phrasing that, or whatever. And so they may not be able to change it, but at least we want to make sure we're hearing, we're listening, and we're telling them what we're hearing from our families.
Right. So we also so outside of the three of us, we do have other people, right, that kind of help support this work. One of them, we have a public affairs office. This year it's kind of two people, some consultants, but last year we didn't have that support, and so we, literally the three of us, really were all of the things, right? And so we were out, we were putting together our own flyers, we were doing all that, where this year we tried to get ahead of it as quickly as we could, and so they're a part of our weekly meetings as well. We brought them in like January, and we were like, okay, like let's put together FAQs, let's make sure that we're already starting to put some information out as just like a save the date, or this is coming, what is climate, let's give them information. We had schools putting together videos and things so that we can put it on the website so that people can understand what we meant when we were saying sense of belonging or school climate. Like there were specific examples about those things. And then we also, this year, which you guys probably have seen on many other sites, but like we had those pop-up blockers that were like, hey, did you fill out the survey? And you had to at least read it before you could X out of it. And like this year, and that ran for the 2 weeks that it was open, where, I'm sure people, because we got
feedback when we were out talking to families.
Sure
like,
did.
Yeah, we got a pop-up and an email and a text message.
And the card and the flyer. I'm like, great, but did you fill it out, right? Like I'm glad you saw it, so you know what I'm talking about, but did you complete it? How many kids did you have? Did you do 1 or 2? So just like kind of having those conversations. I mean, like I was knocking on people's like car door windows, you know, like, hi, it's me again. Can you just, and like people were just holding it up on the, you know, on the window. But I think that they're starting to see that it's important because if we're going out like this far, right, like, whew, I guess we really probably should fill this out. You know, it's different than just getting an email, right, from your principal that's like, we have this survey out, like you guys should do it. But we had principals that were doing videos. We had principals that, you know, were really like, hey guys, we want to be the top school, right? So like really trying, like next year we might do a little bit more friendly competition. We're really trying to ease in every year. But we also noticed that there are some really key community leaders that help in this work, right? So pulling on those people who are already out in the community, who already have their ear to the ground when it comes to certain populations, and bringing them into the conversation, training them a little bit more around the climate survey and why it's important, and what types, like how to answer some of the questions that people might have, or how to connect them to us so that we can document that when we're moving forward. Because we really want this to be important work for families too. Like we want them included in the work so that it's not just us getting the information, which I'm sure you guys all know, right? When you do a survey, people get it and they take it back and you don't see it, you don't hear about it, and then it's the next year you have to do the survey again. That was not where we wanted to be this year. We really, and even last year was our first year, and we had, I think our running doc was like 5 or 6 pages long. This year it's like 2.5, right? Like we really were crossing things off and moving things around and trying to get ahead of it this year. And so that we could be more, you know, strategic around how we're doing that. The biggest thing that we've got was just the open-ended questions. We did not have open-ended questions on our survey. Parents really wanted open-ended questions. And so, you know, we were honest about why, like analyzing it is really hard. We don't have the capacity to do that. But this provides an opportunity to talk to your principals, right? Or talking to principals about how, hey, some of our families really have questions. Like, how are we going to help them get those questions answered? Like, maybe we need to do a focus group, or maybe we need to pull them in. So really kind of helping them do that so that we're really getting those perspectives in a way that makes sense, instead of just like, you know, going through data and, you know, trying to pull it in that way. So.
And I mean, I think as we kind of build on what we've been doing the last 2 years and really, you know, encouraging to share information with families, ask families questions, you know, put together a group, go to a PTO meeting and say, you know, we got this response about this question, but, you know, really, what do you mean by that? So that you're actually, you know, because the data is only, you know, one little point, I guess. It's one point. So it really can start a conversation so that actually there could be improvements, and this conversation goes on between the district, between the buildings and and families. That way, I think families are more likely to respond the next time because they feel like they're really being listened to, and not just we're not just checking off a box saying, okay, we did school climate survey. We're also encouraging principals to include families in their school climate committees, which they're required to do. So that's one thing where we can really get family voice into the schools to really help shape what's going on. And I think, we're just hoping to do better in terms of representation next year. I think that's a big goal of ours. So
one of the things we added this year, we had a higher population of Ukrainian families this year. So this year we added that as a language on the survey, and it became like our 3rd highest responses. And so like just that little shift in like knowing who your families are and making those adjustments really helps us, because now we're hearing from a population, right, that we haven't heard from before, and like we're really able to kind of think about moving forward how to kind of help us support them. So we have questions for you guys, but if you guys have any questions for us, like we'll start with that first.
What survey did you use on Panorama? Was it the school climate?
Yep, it was.
Yes.
It was the school climate one.
Climate,
Yep. And we just picked sections that we thought were appropriate, and then we're sticking to those. So last year, the same questions that we had last year, we're doing this year. We're going to do them next year, so that we have some consistency.
Because I know sometimes they can be lengthy, and I think that kind of...
It does, and we let parents know, like that's part of our marketing. We're like, hey, this is gonna take 15 minutes. You know, like we kind of give them, so I don't know exactly how many, I think there was like 40 or something. Yes, but we tell them, like, we're, you know, set aside this time, you know, provide, and some of our schools, like, did like survey nights, and so they invited families in, and like they had to do the survey first. And then they came in and there was food and there were things for them to do. They had like book giveaway, but it was like a way for them to have a time and a space to complete the survey.
Or we had a lot of volunteers there to
Yep.
answer questions, and we came like just to make sure that you need to talk to anybody about it.
Yeah, it
And
was
some,
great.
some of our pickup lines for schools start really, really early. So, knock on somebody's window. Here,
Yeah.
you could do this while you're waiting.
Yep.
So that you're, kind of getting
you're
them
already
at a time
there.
when
Yeah.
you're, just sitting there.
And then conference week. So that was one of the feedback that we heard from last year. And so we did it during our March conferences. And although this year it was still kind of hybrid, but it still provided opportunities for those families who did come in and were sitting to do it. So there were like stations, like computers and iPads for families to do it. But then also some of our teachers would just send the link at the end, like, hey, just make sure you complete this. So there were still those opportunities to get them done that the schools were trying to provide. Yes.
So between the 2 years, this is the second year you did it, right? In your responses, do you see the changes you were able to implement after the first year data collection?
Yeah, we haven't released all the data.
Yeah, it hasn't been released. We're releasing it next week, so we're a
I
little
will say,
early.
like,
Just to principals.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's also, that's the other piece too, is like thinking
Sorry,
about
keep doing
the release of that data. So we do the principals get access first, and then we are having a workshop with them on how to look at that and ways to think about, how do you communicate this to your teachers and your students and your families. And then we work with the school climate specialists, some of them are also principals, but and then we're presenting to the Board of Ed in June. But we did see, I will say, like there for our middle schools in particular, in the sense of belonging section, I think there's like 5 questions in that section. We saw, I think, a 6% increase year over year, and then with this one particular question about like connectedness to an adult, it went from anywhere from like 6% to 14% increase for middle schools in particular. That was an area that most of our middle schools really went hard on this year. Is like, these are adults in your school. Here's how we build a community with them. If you have a problem, like these are all the people you can think about. It doesn't have to just be a teacher. It can be, here's like all these different adults that operate within our school that you can form a relationship with. One place listed out every single child in their school, and teachers had to like mark off who they knew in some form. And then when those kids didn't have a mark, or there were only a couple marks, they were like, okay, somebody needs to like go get to know this child. And I think they had like a 14% increase in their thing. So I think, we were trying to be more intentional this year with like helping schools. You're already doing that work, so making that linkage.
We'll be able to share best practices, like those schools that really saw improvement, like what did you do, and any school that wants to kind of follow in your footsteps, like help them figure it out.
And we
how to do
provide
that
that opportunity to network with each other, like the schools to come together and say, okay, this is what we're doing. Can we ask you questions? This is what is working for us.
And we also, so the 3 of us have weekly meetings since last year. So like it's like
over 30 hours of meetings.
Yes. And we bring the public affairs people in, we bring the associate superintendent, like we bring people in, like depending on where we are and in our timeline. But I think it's important because that means it just shows that people are still thinking about this work, right? Like if you have somebody, and we really package things for principals, we're putting together templates, we're going into schools and meeting with your teams, like we're doing all of that so that we don't want it to fall, right? And so like we have to be the ones to kind of make sure that this is still going in a good way, right? Because we want to make sure that schools and everyone else who's involved feels supported so that it will just continue to go, and then we can slowly start to pull out. But we really want to make sure that they have what they need so that they are communicating what's happening to their families. So it's a process. Again, we have things that we're learning. We still have a running document of things that we're hearing, but it just helps us so that as we're planning for next year, like we can just continue to grow and look at what we need to do next. So
with Panorama, I know you mentioned before that the Spanish translation wasn't as accurate.
Yes.
And now you're doing Ukrainian.
Yeah.
But are you able to have someone on staff like proof the translation before you send it out?
So we can proof it, we just can't change it because it can't be compared nationally that way. And so what we did do is I oversee all of our family engagement facilitators for our district. Most of them are bilingual English, Spanish. So like we met with them ahead of time and we're like, listen, I know this isn't ideal, but like if you get some questions, like look at the ink, like this is what it's asking. Like there were a couple of things that like even we still got feedback after, and we're working with Panorama. I think Panorama is open to like reviewing those questions, right? Because I'm sure they're getting it from other districts that they're working with as well. But we try to provide as much information as we can, but we can't necessarily. We can add questions, right? Like we can add other ones, but we just can't because it changes. It just changes everything. We just can't change them.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. But are those folks able now to work your family engagement folks? They can meet with the families.
They
with
100%.
them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Which a lot of them do that anyway. So they're if they're calling them on the phone, they're like, "Did you fill out the survey? Like, let me help you walk through that." Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Any other thoughts, questions?
We can ask our questions.
Okay, so yeah, we have a couple questions. So what does partnership look like in your districts? Like what's going well? What's been a challenge for you all? I know where some of you guys are from because I know some of you, but just say like your name and like where you're from and like what's been working and not working.
I'm Valencia. I'm from the London Public Schools. I'm the coordinator of family engagement. Right now we have a project where we're focusing on families of like early childhood, preschool to third grade.
Yep.
We are creating these events where we have a specific theme, right? And then we prepare a lot of activities that are related to that specific theme. I think that's been successful for us because also we are able to have different agencies from the city of New London to provide information about the resources and the services that they offer. So the number of families coming to these particular events have been increasing by a lot. We started with maybe like 2 or 3 families, and right now we have like over 60 families coming. So it's a good opportunity for them, not just to engage or meet staff members, but other families in the district. So we're creating that connection with families, with other families, but also that learning part of helping to educate families to help their students at home. So that's something that is working with us. We're lucky in New London because we have, like I said, a lot of different community partners that are able to come and participate with us. So the challenging is always engaging more and more families,
I know we always want everyone, right? Like we're always like, I'm hitting it 100%. But you're still making a difference even with the 2 or 4 families that show up, right?
Yeah,
so as long as you're like thinking in that way, it's still impactful.
So what you guys are doing is amazing. Like having over 5,000 people answering your survey, that's great. Because when I do a survey, it's like 20. Yeah, and I'm happy, to see those numbers. But I wish I had more people participating. Yeah,
of course.
I mean, but sitting in a room with families is much different than like having somebody, on a phone kind of checking things off. So, I think there's value to both large numbers, but also kind of really one-on-one engagement.
Anyone else?
I can just quickly add. I'm Kenneth Joseph from Booker T. Washington, New Haven. And, I think what just stuck out to me, as you said, is not about the numbers. I started a book club at school. And, in my mind, in the initial thing, I'm like, I'm going to have a big turnout. And we did not. And we actually have about 4 families doing it. But I said, let me step back. One, I got to really engage with 2 new families.
Yep.
And then, a large book club is not good anyhow. So it's actually much more meaningful with a much smaller group.
Yes.
But I think just to piggyback on that, I'm really happy because I'm getting to really know 2 new families as opposed to trying to just know on paper 25 others. So
that is true.
Yeah.
That's a great perspective because I think sometimes too, even when you're doing events, you're really just hi, I'm, you're just kind of touching, but you're not really engaging. And so those small meteor, opportunities really, that's where that relationship builds anyway. So those little sprinkles, those are wins.
It actually just trickled down this past Monday. We had an attendance raffle. We took some kids ice skating, and one of the parents that I just got to know in the book club, her daughter was one of the winners, and I'm like, oh, hey, you, I know you. I feel like I know you so well now because I know your mother even better. So that it really benefited in twofold on those 2 occasions.
Yeah, that's great. any last minute thoughts? I think we might have 2 minutes, so.
I think our other question was on communication too. Like
Yeah.
we're trying to be better about communication. It's just been a challenge in general. If anybody has had successful sticky communication, we'd love to know.
So remember at the beginning of the session, Betsy talked about those aha moments. I'm coming to you to see if anyone wants to share 1 or 2 aha moments. Yay! I wish I had a t-shirt to throw to you for being the first person. I know. It's in spirit. Next time I connect with you, you'll get a prize.
Oftentimes when we are in a space, we are learning, right? So that way we can help our families. But I feel like this is a space for innovation and collaboration. So I just wanted to bring that up, that oftentimes we are the ones listening so we can support our families, but we don't really have that space to listen and collaborate so we can help ourselves. And so I thank you all from this. And I just have to say, I started as a family engagement specialist in a district where like we were myself and one other person was the only 2 families doing family engagement, and I came to a CAFÉ. And prior to that, the school didn't have what expectations of me because they didn't know what they were looking for. So when I came here and I learned from others, I realized that the value that I brought to my schools were affirmed by the people that I was sitting with. So I thank you guys so much for that.
We will just take your contact information and you will go on the road with us. How about that?
No, thank you.
No, thank you, because that's what it's about, right? We bring you all together, one, for you to build those connections and expand your learning and report back to the field. So thank you. Who wants to top that one? I know. Come on, share. Yes.
Well, I'm not topping that.
No, you don't. Because I can't top it either.
So I came here, and I really don't know what I was coming here for. My social worker at my internship sent me here. And so I'm a social work intern, about to be graduating, be a social worker, and also...
Oh, you get an applause for that.
I also work with youth on probation at a community-based program at the Village for Families and Children. And I think, although this may not be the purpose of this, kind of what I got from it was really that partnering with the community for a collective responsibility and progress. Because I think sometimes we can get in the habit or tunnel vision of our own role and what we need to do. And we start pointing fingers or start talking about what's lacking. And then from this table, I really got a great understanding of let's look at what's out there, let's look at highlighting what's out there, and really coming together for the purpose of not our own progress, but truly the community, which involves our families, our youth, that oftentimes systems, there's a lot of gaps and things of that nature, but that doesn't mean we can't bring together. But also, one thing that I want to share with all of you is that even my youth who are on probation, they have voices, they have things that they want to talk about. They may not always articulate it in the best way, neither do I, but they know what they want. And so really starting to also bridge that gap, not just with the people who are looking for help and are telling you they want help, but the people who don't necessarily say it because they don't even know that help is something they can accept. So thank you.
So thank you. And I promise you, they look like plants, but they're not. I have not met you, right? And I met you this morning. So thank you. All right, so I'm not going to pick on anyone else because of the lack of time. Thank you and enjoy your Friday.